Hey folks, it's Mark Murphy with TravelTube.com, and today I'm going to focus on a single topic, which are the entry requirements being discussed and how they're changing, because they are changing, and in many countries they've already changed. And there's also a lot of misinformation out there, and I know I hate that term misinformation because who decides what is actual misinformation? We learned a lot during COVID. But with that said, please do me a favor, subscribe to traveltube.com on the site. Follow us on your favorite podcast. Hey, even if you don't listen, just give us a follow. And that actually helps our ranking and gets the word out to a larger and larger audience. And I would really appreciate it. Of course, we're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all the social media channels that you're aware of, including YouTube. So with that said, what's going on with all the talk about the US requiring 5 years of social media history, yada, 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 and biometrics and fingerprinting and maybe even DNA? All right. I will say that the more hurdles you put in front of travelers, the fewer travelers you get. That's just the way it is. But we have to balance that with making sure that people stay safe in all of their respective countries. It's not just a US thing. And I'm going to share with you quite a bit about this. Right now in the US, it's proposed. It's a proposal based on an executive action that Trump took when he took office that said he wants to tighten up everything. Well, we've already seen the border, basically, all those border crossings that we saw, they went down by over 90%. We kept being told as Americans that we needed to have, comprehensive immigration reform. And Trump said something that was kind of funny. Wherever you land on the political spectrum, you have to laugh when he said you didn't need new laws, you just needed a new president, because the laws are already there to enforce border security. And what they're proposing with the CBP and these new rules is to tighten it up even further. One of the biggest issues countries have is when people come in legally and then they don't leave when they're supposed to leave. They overstay their visa. And with that said, I'm going to share with you some of the rules that are changing. I already kind of rattled them off, but I'll go ahead and share that with you so you can see exactly what these proposed rules state. Here you go. So you may be required to provide up to 5 years of your social media history. And that's for visitors from the visa waiver countries. Not everyone, but it's a significant expansion targeting visa-free tourists / business travels via the ESTA, electronic security, blah, 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 whatever. ESTA. And they're going to do more digital vetting. Well, most people that I know aren't worried about questionable folks being questioned further. Case in point, if you've ever traveled through Heathrow, and I've done it more times than I can count, when you go there, you get asked a bazillion questions before you even go up to the ticket counter. The purpose of your visit, blah, blah, blah. They'll look at your stuff if they want to. Go to Israel. It's a hell of a lot more comprehensive, obviously, for obvious reasons. But what they're saying is you may have to produce this. And I think what that does is it tells people that if you are someone coming to this country and you've been out there spewing hate against Americans and America, we probably don't want you coming to our country for vacation, because let's face it, if you hate the country, why the F do you want to come here? That's a good question. And that's, again, not for everyone. The average person coming through on a tourist visa or just from a visa waiver country, they're just going to come in. They're going to take your photo, take your potentially your fingerprints, and we're going to know when you're supposed to leave. And you have to have a return ticket, just like every other country. And for everyone that's having a meltdown over this, it's proposed. It's proposed. Will it come through? I'd say it's 50-50. It depends. But with that said, have you been paying attention to what some of the other countries are doing out there? Because they're doing things that are as reaching or much farther reaching than what the US is proposing. So I always find it interesting when people squeal like little piglets and they say things like, ah, you can't do that. That's wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's going to kill tourism, this and that. For those folks, where were you when the EU came out with their new program? Because guess what? That started in 24, before Trump ever got elected. And the UK also has very specific rules, and they take it way further when it comes to enforcing certain things that I'm going to get to. But with that said, let's take a look at the EU and what they are asking for. So the EU wants you, if you're coming in, obviously you have to do this application, and then we're going to get to the UK because obviously it's separate. But with the EU entry rules, everyone's screaming about biometric data. The US wants biometric data. Okay. For the entry exit system for the UK, you obviously need a valid passport. You have to go through this process in advance, folks. You can't just show up because you won't be granted entry into the country. And they reserve the right to take biometric data and also potentially fingerprint you. So tell me what's different. I can't think of anything. And then if you go to, let's get rid of this guy. If you go to the UK, what's the UK saying? Aha. For their electronic travel authorization, obviously you're going to pay for it, just like you do in the US. Some basic things. But then you get into it with border control. They may ask for proof of your purpose for visiting, such as a return ticket or evidence of sufficient funds. Okay. Physical immigration documents, if you need an e-visa. If you have a long-term status, we're not going to get into that. And they can also require, again, biometric data. They're going to take your picture. They're going to use that. And they're going to keep that information, just like the US will for non-citizens visiting the US. So it's all kind of lining up the same way. Basically, countries want to know who's coming in. They want to have a tool to capture them and their image and their information. But it also gets a little more interesting when you drill into the UK and certain countries in Europe, like Germany. But we're going to stick with the UK right now. When it comes to the UK, it gets a little crazy because we've been hearing now for a couple of years since they introduced this Online Safety Act. We've been hearing about people in the UK getting arrested and in some cases put in prison for something they posted on Facebook. And in some cases for private messages between individuals that are, quote, deemed hateful or offensive. Well, who decides that? Go look up the number of people arrested in the UK for posting something on social media deemed offensive, and how many people in Russia got arrested for similar offenses. Yeah, it's not even close, folks. It's not even close. So everyone's screaming, oh, Russia, Putin, blah, blah, blah. Now they'll say I'm a Putin lover. Yeah, they're less totalitarian than the UK today is to its own citizens. In fact, what's interesting about the UK and our former administration was if you wanted to come to the US prior to 2023, you had to have the jab. You had to be COVID vaccinated. Experimental use drug that anybody with a brain now knows is getting a black box warning that it can cause death. and it has killed people. It has crippled people. It has caused autoimmune diseases, and God only knows what else it's going to cause. But if you wanted to come to the United States on vacation, we required you to be vaccinated, as did many of the European countries. Idiots all around. Political morons. We're inclusive. Get a shot. Yeah, I don't think so, folks. Thank God I never did. But with that said, they finally dropped that. I think it was May of 23, where it was deemed you didn't have to have a COVID vaccine. But if you wanted to come into the country illegally, just like if you want to take a boat across the English Channel and show up, what did you need? Did you have to fill out the form online and get approved? Did you have to supply anything? No, come on in. Oh, you made it to shore. Welcome aboard. You need a hotel? How about some food? What else do you need? Same in the United States. Morons. That's what burns me. That's what drives me crazy. So when I hear people in the travel industry whining about whatever new rules might come out because they've got TDS. And by the way, for everyone who's got TDS, hopefully you get over it soon because the guy's only here for 3 years from now. Okay. 3 years from now, there'll be a new president coming in. He'll be done. He'll be done before then because, you know, what they call it, you know, where the guy's a lame duck. Yeah, it's going to wind down. So if you hate the guy, and you say, I'm going to stay out of the U.S. because of one person, you, my friend, are an idiot. Would I not go to the U.K. because of Keir Starmer's your prime minister and he's an idiot? No, that wouldn't stop me from going to the U.K. Something else might, which I'm going to get to. But, and by the way, that might be considered hate speech in the U.K. You know, Keir Starmer is an effing idiot, and he's abusing, in my opinion, the citizens of the U.K. Citizens of the UK are okay with that. God bless you. Your country's never going to be the same based on the policies you have. And thank God we got somebody that came in and said, you know what, letting 20 million people into our country and taking hundreds of billions of dollars of US taxpayer money and driving us further into debt. Yeah, not sustainable. Thank God that got corrected. And anybody who doesn't see that that's a good thing, again, go talk to your therapist. Maybe they'll help you. But now let's go back to the UK. So in the UK, and some people thought I was like saying, like, this can't be real. I'll get to it. Oh, it can't be real. There's no way they would do that, this and that. Well, you might be surprised to know that, yes, the US, we will require biometric data. We will fingerprint you. With the CBP app, we might even know your whereabouts at any given time. I think that's really good. People say, oh, what about my privacy? You're here in our country as a guest, as a tourist for a short term. Again, millions of tourists have overstayed their visas in countries around the world. It happens every day. So putting something in place where you can at least have a hope if that person didn't leave as planned, that you can go find them and give them a escort to the nearest departure point and send them on their way. Because we don't want you here if you overstay your visa. We don't want you here if you get here illegally. Common sense. We've got $38 trillion in debt and we're paying for people to stay in our country illegally. No, our taxes are already high enough, folks. And we don't even get your quote free healthcare like you supposedly have in Europe and the UK. But with that said, in the UK, I think I pulled up the wrong sucker. Hang on a second. Let me go back. I got to give you a different one. Hang on a second, folks. I pulled up the wrong one. Let's see, where is it? This will blow your mind if you don't know about this. So like I said, the UK has been arresting its own citizens for what they define as insulting speech. Think about that. Insulting speech. So if you say something to someone on social media, or you just do a post, and somebody in the UK finds it insulting, you could be arrested. And they have arrested, I believe, north of 12,000 people for online speech. Thank God the US has nothing to do with the UK. And thank God some very brave people said F you and set up a republic, democratic republic here in the United States with a constitution that guarantees our right, it's the first right, to free speech. And there's a reason it's the first right, because it's the most important one. I should be able to say anything, no matter how offensive, with no repercussions. And that's true in the US. But if you call somebody a dirty scoundrel, blah, 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 or you said, I'm sick of these immigrants from third world countries coming in and basically sacking the UK, that's going to get you in big trouble over there. But for tourists, and this is where it gets crazy, for tourists, here's what they're saying. The commissioner of the Metropolitan Police in London said that they would pursue anyone online, even from abroad, for crimes like inciting violence or hate, which critics view as a threat to free expression, according to reports from blah, 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 whatever. Yes, I saw the man say that they would attempt to extradite people from foreign countries if the UK finds their speech offensive. You can go fuck yourself. I usually don't curse. I've been keeping it really clean. But the Metropolitan Police Chief, the police commissioner, he can go fuck himself, along with the rest of the little bobbleheads running around London. Good luck trying to get an American arrested for something they said, not even in the UK, they said it in America, where we have our own laws. Now, here's what I'll say. If I go to another country, I respect their laws. If you go to a foreign country, and some of them are really strict on certain things, like you get caught with a couple of bullets floating around in your bag because that backpack you took to the shooting range and you forgot or didn't check it before you threw a bunch of stuff in there. And in the case of Turks and Caicos, you're going through security to leave the country because they don't scan your stuff on the way in. On the way out, you're leaving. If they find 2 bullets, you could get up to a 10-year sentence in the Turks and Caicos Islands. So it's not something to joke around about. But that's their country, their laws, and I am a guest in their country, and I need to follow their laws. However, in the UK, they're talking about possibly extraditing. So there's actually a traveler warning that warned Americans that posts back home could lead to arrest or extradition upon entering the UK. So let me see. You're worried about the US looking at your social media should they find your visit possibly questionable. And they may ask for a lot of things if you want to come into the country. And people are losing their minds. Oh, they're going to look at my 5 years of my social media history. Folks, the UK is threatening to arrest you upon arrival at Heathrow based on your social media posts that you've made in America or wherever the hell else you were. This could be your first time ever going to the UK, and they're threatening you with arrest. Plain and simple. The commissioner of the Metropolitan Police says that on camera. I'm not going to pull up the video. Just Google it. You'll see it. Now, all of these things overall are really, really bad for tourism in general. When you have extra fees, like if I want to go to the UK and then hop over to, let's say, France or somewhere else in Europe, I have to then do their entry requirements too. I have to pay for the ETA in The UK, I got to pay for STIA, I've lost track. Anyway, yeah, you got to register, you got to do it in advance, get all that taken care of. It's one of the reasons why I say travel agents are important, because they will take care of a lot of this stuff for you and make sure you are very much aware of what the requirements are. And there are a lot of people who've been to Europe numerous times, and I've been to Europe, again, more times than I can count. But when I hear that they're threatening arrest if you enter the country because of something you said 2 years ago on social media, that is beyond the pale. We're not saying we're going to arrest visitors coming in. We are just going to deny entry in the US to people that the CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, deem potentially dangerous. That's reasonable, especially after you wake up in the morning and on any given day, an illegal immigrant driving a truck killed 3 people on a highway. An illegal immigrant, had a DUI and ran somebody over and killed somebody's kid. An illegal immigrant raped and murdered a college student who's a nursing student, and on and on and on. Every freaking day, we can see that. You'll get the argument that, oh, but immigrants, do less crime than Americans. Well, guess what? Immigrants don't need to be here illegally. They can come through the right way. And I don't know about you. I don't know how many immigrants you've sponsored into the US, you folks who are so adamant about we should have no borders. But at the same time, I've actually sponsored immigrants into this country as a business owner. And they are adding tremendous value to this country. They came in, they went to college, they graduated, I sponsored them. They make great money. They have a house, a couple of cars, and they contribute versus the ones who come in and simply go on welfare, get EBT cards, get free housing, and then you wonder why Americans said enough is enough. And that's why we had an election a year ago. That's why the election changed the landscape. And, there's been some bumps in the road, obviously. And there's some people that are upset about some of the tactics, but the policy of getting illegal aliens out of this country, I am 100% for. And I don't care what you think, and if you think that's mean or whatever, because I've actually done it the right way. I spent thousands of dollars and went through a process that took this gentleman years to go through. FYI, yeah, got a green card, became a U.S. citizen, and he's an unbelievably proud American. I've also had somebody that I started to sponsor, and then things changed, and they ended up not coming. So that's okay. But again, you got to do it the right way. So back to all of this information as it pertains to what's going on in the world of borders, border requirements, and everything else. If I was going to instruct the Trump administration on what to do, I would say that they should have a policy that allows for that deeper dive into your social media, even DNA, all sorts of things. However, I would make it very clear that there has to be a trigger in place for that to be required. That it's not something where everybody comes in, just, be prepared for an anal probe, just in case, we might have to give you a colonoscopy. No, that make it very clear. 95% of the people, 98% of the people that come in are not going to have to deal with it. As for the biometric stuff, guess what, folks? Cameras are everywhere. Your face is everywhere. You're being recorded everywhere. If you're on social media, you have no privacy. You've already put it out there. I've put it out there. It is what it is, right? Unless you want to go live off grid somewhere in Montana and cut all ties, and then great, you won't have to worry about it. But if you want to be able to travel and you want to be able to go see the world, and the world's a much more volatile place today, given all the things that we keep seeing, what just happened in Sydney, what happened at Brown University, what's happened overseas with Christmas markets getting rammed. There's a common denominator. It is what it is. Numbers don't lie, despite people trying to sugarcoat it. And you have to address that. So if your spidey sense goes up and you're a CBP officer, before all of this, what's been the process? I'll give you an example. I came back from filming for about a week in Jamaica. One of the guys with me got grabbed at the airport. And why did he get grabbed? Well, let's just say that there's some marijuana available in Jamaica. And a dog, a little beagle, was very excited about his bag. Now, the good news was there were no drugs in the bag. However, he got the third freaking degree. They were like, why don't you tell us now? It'll go easier on you. By the way, here's a tip. When they ask you to talk about what, admit this, admit that, don't admit anything. Say, listen, I'm not saying anything. Feel free to, I'm coming back. You've got the right to search my bags. Go for it. Go for it. There was a scent of marijuana on the bag, and that's what triggered the dog. So he probably spent an extra hour and a half in the airport, and that sucked. But at the same time, that's not everybody. The other two guys, me and the other guy, we're like, okay, we'll see you at the office, man. Tomorrow. We'll see you at the office tomorrow, because that's where we'd end up the next day. But you can get pulled in for additional screening. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever had to have somebody go through your bags? Let's take Mexico, for instance. You ever go through Mexico and customs when you're coming into Mexico? That's the Cancun airport. It's the most ridiculous system in the world. But where you go up with your customs declaration and you push the button, and if you get the green button, you go around and you leave. If you get the red button, it goes through the x-ray. And then 9 times out of 10, they also go through your bag on a table. It's been going on forever, all the time. Now what they're doing, because of digital capabilities, because of other tools that they have with biometrics, AI, facial scanning, all of that stuff that we all have to live with, to be frank. There's no way to avoid it. It's here already, and it's been here for a while. That's just the cost of being able to travel and get around and see the world. And I'm willing to do that, because I think traveling has far more benefits than staying home. It opens our eyes to other cultures. It makes us understand that we're not so different from many of these other cultures. And most of us want to be safe, enjoy life, raise a family, have great kids. That's what most people want to do. And so we're more aligned than we're not. But then you have the idiot politicians, the idiots that shit on their own citizens while having an open door policy for people coming from everywhere around the world. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this. If I hear one more clown talk about, but they're here on asylum from Timbuk effing 2. And I say to myself, okay, we're part of, of the countries that are very willing and able to take in refugees, okay, and willing to take in asylum seekers. But what are you seeking asylum from? 95% of the asylum seekers, their claims get kicked out. They're not valid because they're here for economic reasons. Asylum is for people that are under political threats and violence. There are a host of factors that will, if they're coming from a war-torn area, et cetera. But the idea behind with asylum is you go to the nearest country where you're not going to be persecuted for your political, religious beliefs, et cetera. So when you have somebody coming here from China, seeking asylum from China, no. There are many places they can go before they ever get to the US. And the same with anybody coming from Africa or from Central and South America, and on and on and on. If you go through a country that is a safe country for your persecution that you're experiencing, you need to stop there and apply for asylum there. But no, it's like a train bringing everybody up to the US. Why? Because we got the greatest economy in the world right now. And I expect that to continue and to get even better. So I don't fault those people for wanting to do that. However, we have rules and laws. And if you want to break them on your first opportunity, then you don't deserve to be in our country. And that is a cold, hard fact. And if more people understood that, and more people understood the actual laws and the rules around asylum, and they understood that a sanctuary city, for instance, in the United States, that does not allow the federal agents to do their job, meaning if you pick somebody up and they're charged with rape or they're charged with burglary, and instead of holding them because there's a detainer on them from ICE, you put them back into the community, what does ICE need to do? They need to go into the community to find those people, which puts them at risk, other people that are connected to them at risk. So when you whine like, oh, they're picking up people that aren't criminals. Okay, well, if you go into a house and there's 10 illegal aliens, but you're there for the one that committed the crime, that had the hold, that was being protected with a sanctuary city policy, and you're upset that the other ones get picked up because they're all illegal, that's on you. That's on you. That's not on the CBP. That's not on the policies of the Trump administration, yada, yada, yada. It's federal law trumps state and local laws. Okay? That's it. But unfortunately, we have a lot of uneducated, uninformed clowns on TV, on podcasts, that basically lie to your face, and you sit there like a zombie, like Clockwork Orange. And you just take it in. You're like, oh, the COVID vaccine really works. I was telling you in 21, it doesn't work, and the data showed it. And I had people shut me down on TV, and I pushed back, but they really tried to shut me down. And then I got dropped and I got kicked off of LinkedIn for posting about Singapore having a super spreader because their volume of positive cases went through the roof, way up, way above where it was pre-vaccination. So, let me see what's happening. But these are the people telling you the lies about all of this stuff. So again, I'll reiterate, if I was advising the Trump administration, I would tell them, if they want this to be very clear, after this period where it's being discussed and being reviewed, it's a 60-day review period. It's going to get re-examined after public comment in January, to make it very clear. This will not affect 95, 98, 99% of the travelers coming into the US. However, if we see something that concerns us, we reserve the right to dig deeper. Just like the CBP agent can dig deeper into your bags when you're coming back into the country and going through customs. And just like Mexico goes through your bags, and just like in the UK, they go through your bags. You know what I mean? Hello, this is not new. But you won't hear that on the mainstream media. Till next time, I'm Mark Murphy. This is TravelTube.com, and I hope this was helpful. Take care. I am out of here.